And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everybody, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers. Come to you live from the Huntsville Attic in beautiful Huntsville, Alabama. I'm really excited about the show. Today we're going to be talking about the Justice League. That's right, the superhero team from DC Comics. We're talking about maybe the Batman and the Wonder Woman and Aquaman and all of those fine folks. I mean, it's such a long list, but why am I rambling on? We'll get into the show. And of course, I'm John Hammertime Holshoe. I forgot my own name. And with me always, Rockin' Robbie Billups.
Hey, it's Rollin'. I forgot my name too. Rockin' Robbie Billups. Hey, John, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a long day, but I'm excited to talk about the Justice League.
Yeah, and the listeners don't care if it's been a long day for you. They may have had a long day. They may have had an easy breezy day, beautiful cover girl kind of day. But we are talking about the Justice League. Of course, a Justice League movie coming out. I think I saw something about it.
I saw a trailer or a promo or something.
I think I heard something about it. But of course, Justice League, DC Comics, they're like the big guys. There you go, right? With us tonight, we have some comic book historians and connoisseurs. Dashing Drew Madsen, everybody.
Yeah. How y'all doing? I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you here on Justice League. Yeah. Also, with us, we have Jason Shawn-Carl.
Hey, everybody. What's up?
Oh, we're doing well. Thank you for stepping in and talking some Justice League with us.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Of course, Jason hosts other podcasts. Why don't you tell us about them real quick? This is your plug.
Oh, I love it. Shameless self-promotion. The best. I am from the RCR Reviews podcast, and my co-host would kill me if I didn't say that I'm also from the ENS podcast.
The ENS and RCR Reviews. Check them out. Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, all that jazz. And John, I'm ready to talk about some Justice League. How about you?
I am, man. I love the Justice League. So, I love them. I think everybody does. I think comic book fans, no matter what side of the aisle, you're a Marvel fan, you're this fan, everybody likes the Justice League, man. I mean, the Justice League is old school, and they're like, what a group, you know what I'm saying? Let's take these badass characters and let's put them together.
Absolutely.
To make a team. So everybody loves the Justice League, I would think.
Absolutely. And the original idea was conceived by Gardner Fox, big-time comic book writer back in the day, actually created also the Justice Society of America, which were kind of like the forerunners to the Justice League. Also created Flash, the Jay Garrick Flash, Hawkman, Dr. Fate. Gardner Fox was a big deal. Created the Justice League in Brave and the Bold, number 28, March 1960.
Holy shit. I forgot he was the Dr. Fate creator guy.
Yeah, and the original members, the original Justice League lineup did not include Batman or Superman.
But it did. Yeah, I remember reading that the Justice was a Justice Society. That's early stuff, and that's Dr. Fate was one of the entry-level characters, right?
Oh,
one
yeah,
of the first
and
characters.
Hawkman, Inspector, and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Did you say Hawkman?
Yes.
I swore I thought you said Cockman. I was like, I don't know all the DC. I don't know all the DC characters. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of them. So, like I said, I love DC and I love the Justice League. So I'm hoping you guys do too, and that's why you're here. But I want to find out why you love the Justice League. I'm going to start with Dashing Drew.
I love the Justice League because you see the Batman, you see the Superman, and you wonder what the Trinity. But then you get to see all of the guys who aren't as popular. You get to see them interact. You get to see how... It's like, yeah, these big villains, like Superman can handle them easily, but it's like it takes something like massive because he has to recruit people like the Plastic Man. Yes, and Batman, like he's not great with a team, but he realizes how important it is to have that brotherhood or sisterhood, just to have everything together and be able to tackle anything that the world or the universe can throw at them.
Yeah, you're right. There's sometimes there's a bigger threat, so it does work as a team. Works to work as a team. You can quote me on that.
Yes.
What about you, Jason? Why do you like the Justice League? What do you love the Justice League?
What I love
so much so to be on the show, obviously. You must like them.
See, to me, the Justice League, to piggyback off what you said, the Justice League represent duality. They also represent how to balance out things in your life. Because if you notice, every single one of the heroes has their own area they have to protect, their own responsibilities. But at the same time, they come together and they fight to protect the world. We have Wonder Woman who has to take care of the Amazons and all those duties, but at the same time, she rises above all those issues and problems to fight with the League to actually protect the world. It's mind-blowing, honestly. because I know personally trying to have a job and doing other things is hard. Try protecting an entire island of Amazon and the world at the same time.
But at the same side of the coin is that if you can't protect the world and it gets destroyed, then there is no Amazon, right? So I guess that's why she's part of this team, and a lot of these other characters join up because it's their bigger cause. And like, hey, we can protect as a team. And she's pretty badass. I'll give Wonder Woman props. I think as a kid, I just didn't understand how badass she was. As some of these other characters, I was a big Batman fan. But you realize that all these characters still have flaws, and these other characters help them. You know what I'm saying?
They balance each other out.
Yeah, balance each other out to make a better, cohesive team. What about you, Robbie? Why do you love the DC Justice League, the DC Justice League, as opposed to the Image Justice League?
Yeah, well, the Image Justice League could be cool too. I love it's the iconic characters. First of all, right? They are seriously the most popular superhero characters out there. I mean, yeah, you got your Spider-Man, you got your Hulk, you got your Wolverine, and until recent years, really, like Spidey and Wolverine, they weren't really part of the Avengers. People didn't really know those characters who were Avengers, as well as everybody knows Superman, everybody knows Batman, even people know Aquaman and Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. Like, these are the most iconic comic book characters out there, all on one team. And like Drew said, going up against the most epic, giant stories. So, like, the greatest Justice League stories don't only have some of the greatest comic book characters. They have the biggest, most outrageous, most insane type stories, and it's just a nice 1-2 punch, don't you think? What about you, John?
Oh yeah, it's the over the top. Yeah, it's something Batman couldn't handle on his own, or Superman couldn't handle on his own. In theory, again, like we was talking with Jason earlier, there's characters that are very strong, but they do have weaknesses. So as a team, and honestly, it exposed me to characters I would normally wouldn't. I always read Batman books, but then when I was reading Justice League, there were some characters. You think I was going to go out and buy a Plastic Man book if there was one? Seriously, there was characters I wasn't cognizant of or I didn't care about that changed my mind when they were in that book. I'm like, oh, these characters are great. Right? These are underrated characters in the DC, pantheon.
Absolutely. And when you're young, right, and you don't have a lot of money, right, and you're like, well, I wish I could read Flash and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern and Superman and Batman and all these different comics, but when you get Justice League, you get them all in one book.
Yeah.
So that's very
with
dope.
the exception of the crossovers, where I'm like, son of a bitch, I don't have the money for all these. But with the exception of that, you're right. You get everything in one book, and you get literally everything. I think there's a lot of great, especially before, a lot of great story arcs that are just within Justice League, and you didn't have to venture out. So I think majority of my money as a kid was either Batman books or Justice League books.
We were talking about some of the great iconic characters that comprise the membership of the Justice League. So let's talk real quick about our favorite members of the Justice League. Of course, the Justice League of America too, Justice League International, Justice League Europe if you want, like any iteration of the Justice League, right? No society here. We should do a JSA podcast, but I don't know, maybe. They should do a Justice Society movie. No, they shouldn't. Anyway, Jason, what are your favorite Justice League members?
Now, I thought long and hard about this because, man, there's so many good characters to pick between. But if I had to pick a definitive character, I'm going to go classic, and I'm going to say Superman.
Oh, man, that's a great answer always. Why?
I remember reading a story. It's not exactly a Justice League story, but it made me want to get as much Superman as I possibly could.
Yeah.
It was Superman Peace on Earth.
Okay, the Alex Ross, Paul Dini one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful artwork.
Oh, amazing. And you got to see the real heart in Superman. The fact that he literally wants to help everyone. He has a good, kind heart and wants to do everything he possibly can, even if he knows it's in vain. And that moral story hit me at home. It hit me right here in my heart. I was like, oh, Superman's my guy. I love Superman.
Absolutely. Great pick. Absolutely. Drew, what about you?
My favorite would probably be Martian Manhunter because
Dun, dun, dun. Nice.
because he's always the diplomat. He's always wants to talk things out, and that's why he's always around setting up different teams as well, because he understands it personally, because strife and hatred destroyed his world, and he's also like he's always seemed to work better in a team book than his own book, because even one of my favorite issues of Martian Manhunter has to do with his Justice League International team when they steal the Chacos from Booster Gold, and Blue Beetle steal it, and he hulks out because he's actually addicted to it. But like that interplay with the team where he gets so like it's the first time you see him like actually like rage out and seeing like that, but he's normally like the level head as opposed to like Batman's would be like end it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or people like that.
What about you, John? Hammertime, Holshoe. I bet I know what who your favorite member is.
It's going to be Batman.
Yeah, okay.
Well, a lot of it has to
Surprise.
do with my first introduction to the Justice League was actually Super Friends. And Batman, I just love Batman in the cartoon, Batman and Robin, in fact. And I love that show, and that, again, had a big influence on me as a kid. And it was Batman specifically that just blew my mind. So I've always been a big Batman fan. I mean, it's hard to pick beyond that. The Flash is awesome. Aquaman's awesome. Wonder Woman's awesome. Superman. They're such great characters. I mean, really pick your favorite. I have to pick like 20.
I know, right? Well, absolutely. You guys said some good ones. Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter. That's a great one, right? So I got Martian Manhunter right here. Because to me, Martian Manhunter is the heart of the Justice League.
When you said that, I thought he was going to be on the show. He's right here,
Yeah,
guys.
he's right here. Everybody, John Jones. Greetings. Anyway, he is the heart. And like Drew said, he never really had his own book, nor when he did, it didn't really seem to sell very well. The Joe Ostrander has a run with Tom Mandrake that's really, really good. J.M. DeMatteis did a miniseries in the late 80s. That's the essential Martian Manhunter story right there. Got to read that one. So good. That's where a lot of the whole sole survivor of Mars and stuff, that's where that comes from. Because the old school Silver Age Martian Manhunter, wasn't the last survivor of Mars. They were still out there, and he was just kind of a goofier Superman in a way, and he was green, and he had more powers in a way. Martian Manhunter's great, though, because he is that heart of the League. He's always there. He's there through almost every single iteration, and that's one of the things about the New 52 Justice League that kind of bothered me, was the elimination of Martian Manhunter from that roster, because to me, up until that point, he is the most important character to the Justice League. And also Aquaman, obviously. Because Aquaman is super, super awesome, very undervalued, incredibly powerful, and especially during the Hook Hand Peter David years when Grant Morrison was writing.
Good, yeah.
He really worked very, very well. And him and Diana, Wonder Woman, had a very, very cool dynamic from that.
So we talked about our favorite members. Let's talk about the most underrated members. Because there's been a lot of people in the Justice League. I went through and was trying to think about this.
Yeah, there's been 8.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Maybe hundreds.
Almost
Because there's so many
a couple
variations.
zeros to that.
Dude, at this point, Catwoman has been a member of
she
the
was in
Justice League.
JLA,
Yeah.
right? And I want to know who you think are the most underrated members. We might have some similar answers. I think Robbie and I were
What, Vibe?
like-minded.
You like Vibe too?
God damn it, Vibe's not on the list.
Why not?
If anybody have Vibe on their list, I'm just going to escort him out of the studio. Speaking of escorting people out of the studio, Drew, who do you think's underrated in the...
When I think about underrated,
League.
I always think about my man, my Plastic Man.
Plastic Man?
Oh, yeah.
Eel O'Brien, man. He is a blast because I love the concept of cartoon physics in comics, because think about the wackiest things you can see in comics and then take it up to another notch. And Plastic Man embodies that. He's always cracking jokes, but he's outrageously powerful, but everyone thinks that he is a joke because he used to be a criminal and such.
He must be a hoot to draw because he's just got... You mean you can go so zany with the physics? I'm serious.
He must be a hoot to draw.
I'm just saying, if I was an artist, your sky... You know what I'm saying? Your imagination's your limit as far as how you draw him.
Yeah.
You don't have to...
Because more so than any other stretchy character like Mr. Fantastic or the Elongated Man, he really can just do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely anything. Yeah, great character, man.
But who would win in a fight between Plastic Man and Elongated Man?
Plastic.
Plastic Man.
What
That's
if Elongated
hands down.
Man snuck up on Plastic Man and he was sleeping?
Still Plastic.
It's an interesting twist.
What about you, Robbie? Who do you feel is the most underrated character in the Justice League?
There's a lot of them.
Besides Superman.
There are a lot. Then there are some. There are some, for instance, like Firestorm, where they should be considered some of the most underrated, but they never get used right.
Yeah.
So they're just underused.
Yeah, he should be more badass than he is.
But I got 3 here that I wanted to spotlight. First of all, Zatanna. Zatanna is
Love
incredibly powerful, and she needs to be more involved in the Justice League outside of just magic stories.
Yeah, or
right?
Justice League Dark.
From the Grant Morrison era, Grant Morrison created with Mark Miller Aztec, the Ultimate Man. And I think that it's a very, very brief run when he's in there. He had his own series, it got canceled, and Morrison brought him into the book and kind of fulfilled his whole story in Justice League in JLA. And Aztec is amazing. And also, Connor Hawk's Green Arrow, because there is, in particular, and I will be talking about Grant Morrison a lot tonight. There's a particular story when he first joins the League, Connor Hawk, who is the son of Oliver Queen, who at the time Oliver was dead, and the Justice League have been completely wiped out by the Key. The Key has got them all under wraps. They are done. And Connor Hawk just shows up, and he winds up with no bow, no arrows, and he just has to use his dad's old trick arrows, which Connor didn't use, things like the boxing glove arrow, and he had to use these dumb, goofy gimmick arrows and save the day. And he did, and it was absolutely great. And one more thing I want to throw out real quick. So many of them. Steel.
Oh, Steel.
Oh, yeah.
And not Shaq, but Steel.
Steel from the comics. Yeah. No. Steel was a badass.
He was.
Okay, that's a pretty good list. What about you, Jason? What do you think?
When you said Green Arrow, I was like, oh no, he got my pick. But you took Hawk.
Yeah.
I'm going for Oliver Queen.
Oliver.
Okay, yeah.
Because he introduced me to social issues. Like, people don't understand that he may not be the heart of the team like Martian Manhunter, but he's one of the most, if not the most, actually human character. And a lot of people say he's just a Batman shadow, when in actuality, he's a completely different character.
He really is. That's just the TV show that can't get that one right?
Yeah.
Well, I was going to call you out and be like, well, he doesn't have any powers. But then I realized earlier I said Batman's my favorite character, so I'm in the same boat. But dude, yeah, definitely, man. And he, especially in the newer versions of the Justice League, it feels like they kind of put him by the wayside or forgot him. He's always been a pretty big part of the Justice League.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the atom on his shoulder.
Well, more recently, he proved himself to be a valuable member, and he's like, I don't want to be a part of your team. I want to be a rogue agent. And I was like, what? That's cool.
Yeah, I remember that. Back in the classic stuff, it was really cool because you mentioned how he introduced you to social issues. Because, of course, when Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams were doing GA, and they were doing like a buddy thing and they were on the road and all that stuff, there were a lot of social issues that were brought up. And it started helping to make DC more relevant again at that time in the 70s. One of the funny things about Oliver is that he's liberal. Oliver is straight up liberal.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Carter, Hawkman, is incredibly conservative.
Oh, my God.
And those two, sometimes in the old issues, have just a great chemistry. And I think that in today's divisive society in America, I think we could learn something from Hawkman and Green Arrow. Friends to the end, heroes, best of frenemies. But they got along.
A silly team-up book. Maybe that's what DC's missing from their lineup.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this...
Never mind. What about you, John?
I was going to say Shazam!
Ooh.
I think...
Did you notice nothing happened when you said that?
You got to say it 3 times.
In front of a mirror?
Yeah, in the dark. And then the Candyman shows up, which is really messed up. I just think he's a badass, and he's... Not only is he a great character, but where Superman fails, his weakness is Superman's can't do magic, or his weakness is magic. And Shazam's always kind of filled that in, and Shazam's been a badass. And I especially like, there's a run with, we'll get into it later.
Okay.
He's had some good parts.
Yes.
Where he's been a big part of the Justice League, even though he's not originally DC property, but he's been, I think, great in the Justice League. And then I was going to say Zatanna, which you already said. She's awesome. And then Dr. Fate. So I picked 3. But Dr. Fate, I think, is just a badass dude. How about people with magic?
Yeah.
And Dr. Fate is a badass.
Absolutely. So we talked about our favorite characters. We talked about underrated characters. But we know that the Justice League is greater than the sum of its parts. So what are your favorite lineups from Justice League heroes? History. Because there are a lot of different ones. Of course, the original lineup was Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, and Green Lantern. Superman, Batman joining very shortly after, then the Atom, Green Arrow, Hawkman, and then it just exploded. And
Scooby-Doo, Dr. Oz.
Absolutely. George Jetson.
Yeah. People forget.
Yeah. So, what are your favorite lineups? I'm going to start with Jason.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I thought long and hard about this, and you know what? I'm going to represent one of the newer lineups.
Okay.
Yes.
The one with Vibe and Catwoman?
Oh, not exactly. As much as Vibe is so unloved and deserves so much more credit.
We're really bashing on Vibe.
Yeah,
We really are.
I hope the actor that plays Vibe doesn't listen to the show.
Yeah, that's the best part of that show.
He's so wonderful.
He is great, but I don't want him to think we're like bashing on the character.
You're great.
I think he knew what he was getting into.
Strictly the Detroit version, okay?
But the lineup currently that is comprised of Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, the normals, Cyborg, plus the 2 Green Lanterns, Baz and Jessica.
Yeah.
I love them. They're my
That's
favorite duo right now.
Yeah, and of course Aquaman. Don't forget him.
Oh,
He's
can't
in there
forget
too.
Aquaman.
Okay,
Cannot
he's in there too.
forget
Right. I think Cyborg, who has always been a Teen Titans, a Teen Titan, right, and it got really popular during that Wolfman and Perez run. But I think he's been he's been great in the Justice League ever since they introduced him as a Justice League member. Now, of course, since the rewriting of the timeline, he's a founding member, and it does suck that Martian Manhunter's not there. But Cyborg actually fits right in more than I thought he would when they first announced that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it was weird because when they first, like you said, when they first announced it, I was like, what was the decision? Why'd they switch it out? I was trying to figure it out. But no, he fits perfectly. He almost made my underrated list. He was almost the number 1.
Was he in the team before the New 52, or is that when he became officially part of the
That's when he
team?
became.
That's when he officially became. I don't think
Okay.
he's ever been a Justice League member up until that point.
Okay, that's what I recall, but
Now-
I was like, man, maybe I'm misremembering.
He was a member of the Justice League in the cartoons because in the Superpowers Galactic Guardians, which is my personal favorite Super Friends series, it's amazing. It's the one where they really, really used a lot of the Kirby Fourth World stuff. Darkseid was in there. It was one that toy line was coming out too. Him and Firestorm were like the newbies in that one, and that was a cool little lineup. But that's a great one. I mean, it's a good lineup, dude, and especially with Simon and Jessica, 2 great additions to the GL mythology.
If you're not reading that comic book, you're missing out because it's great.
Yeah, it really is. What about you, Drew? What's your favorite Justice League lineup?
I got it here for reference. It's the Justice League International. And now
The 80s?
yes,
Yeah.
by Giffen and DeMatteis.
With Fire and Ice, homie.
Yeah.
Oh, God. We're talking about that earlier.
They came in a little bit later, but the original lineup, it's Mr. Miracle, who's pretty popular now. Mr. Miracle, Big Barda, Oberon, Black Canary, Martian Manhunter, Batman,
Shazam.
Shazam, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, Dr. Fate, and the female Dr. Light, the hero Dr. Light.
Yes. And
Is that the one
who
that
was
Superman kills?
What?
Doesn't Superman kill a Dr. Light in
No.
one of the...
This is a new 52.
Is that New 52?
Is it?
Yeah,
oh, it
it's
is New
during the
52
Trinity War.
during Trinity War.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It-
easily forgotten.
Dr. Light was first introduced
I like
in
Trinity War.
Crisis. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
good.
She was
On my list.
introduced. Dude, that's a cool lineup, and everybody knows the whole One Punch thing.
Oh
Right.
yeah, because Guy Gardner has been such a jerk to Batman the entire time, and Batman's just taking it, and then just knocks him out. One punch,
Yeah.
one punch. But the original One Punch Man.
It's a great light-hearted take on the Justice League, but it's still fun. And one of the most lasting impressions from it is that iteration of the Justice League lasted for a long time. It was basically that Justice League that was there during Doomsday
Yeah,
and all that stuff. And that's where Max Lord comes from.
yep.
And
Maxwell
that's
Lord.
one of the biggest things from that run, absolutely. What about you, John? Favorite Justice League lineup?
Okay, I would probably... It's hard to pick one, so I'm going to go with 2. So besides the New 52 with Cyborg, I like that lineup. I really like Grant Morrison's JLA lineup. So you got Batman, Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, of course, Martian Manhunter, plus Plastic Man, and then, of course, Green Arrow and Huntress.
Yeah, Huntress was a member, yeah.
And I also really like and this was shorter lived, and I don't know if this is really Justice League or not, but it is, Justice League Dark. I really like that team up because it was Constantine, Zatanna, Deadman, Swamp Thing, Shade. There was a couple characters I'm leaving out, but just the idea of my favorites were Constantine, Swamp Thing, Deadman, and Zatanna teaming up was my favorite part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So what a great cast. It was just a cool concept.
absolutely.
That's when they had that was the big crossover with Trinity War.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. That was a great lineup too. I will go with, first of all, the big 7. It's like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, right? And that was the team that Grant Morrison did.
Yep.
And that was a big deal when he did that because they hadn't been members of the Justice League ever in the post-crisis continuity. So he got the big 7 together, and what was more interesting to me was that it was Wally West's Flash,
Oh yeah, because
and it was Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern.
Yep.
And they were rookies.
oh yeah.
And they were, the way they interacted, like Kyle was so scared to be up there with with Arthur and Bruce and Clark and
How does a
Diana.
rookie get into the Justice League?
He was a Green Lantern.
He was the only Green Lantern.
He was the only
They needed
Green
a Green
Lantern.
Lantern. Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotta have a Green Lantern on the payroll.
Yeah, and you got to have a speedster. So those
And,
both.
and
yeah.
Morrison intentionally wanted it to mimic the Greek pantheon. We'll get to more of that later. But especially, I really like it when he expanded the team out, like you were saying. Plastic Man, Huntress, Orion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Orion and Barda. You had Oracle. It was Aztec. Showed up, Connor Hawks. It was just a great lineup. Everything had a perfect role. Steel was in that lineup. There's stickers, actually, from an old Wizard still over there of when they did the lineup, and it was really fun stuff. But that would absolutely be my favorite lineup of heroes. You like what I did there, John? Of heroes.
Segway.
Of heroes. Of heroes.
Of heroes. David Bowie.
So that's your favorite. That's your favorite lineup, and we've also talked about our favorite characters, underrated characters. Let's talk about our favorite villains, because the Justice League. If you got this badass group, you got to have a badass villain, man. You have to have somebody that can kick all their asses, or at least maybe a group of characters that kick their asses. So I'm going to start off with Jason this time. Who are some of your favorite DC villains? Justice League villains in particular, but a lot of them are crossover. I mean, we get Batman villains that become Justice League villains and vice versa.
My number one is not necessarily Darkseid, but I've always loved Granny Goodness. I love Granny Goodness.
Okay.
And her Furies. Oh, man. I could read that all day long.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's the cartoon, honestly. I think that's what really got me into it.
Yeah.
Because he was unique. Because usually the bad guy is some beautiful woman who, has this fire power or magic power or something like that. But no, she was just a cackling, evil, manipulative person. I loved it. Loved everything about it.
Yeah, the Granny Goodness is actually a really twisted character when you read the Fourth World, and I swear, dude, they need to put a cameo of her in the. I hope there's a cameo of her in the Justice League movie, and it's Betty White.
That's great.
Any others you want to mention besides her?
Ooh, Deathstroke. God love Deathstroke.
Oh, Deathstroke's awesome.
A guy that can single-handedly
Badass
take out
mercenary.
the entire Justice League, but can't beat a bunch of
You
kids.
always say that, yeah. He can't struggles with the Titans.
Yeah.
For some reason, I completely forgot about Deathstroke. I don't know why I left him
Yeah,
off the list.
and Brad Meltzer's Identity Crisis. He just completely takes them out, dude.
does.
God, it's such a great scene. And you're like, why does Robin give you such a hard time? Beast Boy. Beast Boy's the bane of my existence. I can take out Superman and Batman.
Maybe he's
Goddamn
an
Beast Boy.
adult, so he can think like an adult, and then he can't think like a teen. I don't know. I don't know why he struggles. Those are great answers, though, man. Those are great answers. Robbie.
I'm going to say Darkseid because to me that's
Who's
obvious.
this Darkseid
Yeah,
guy?
Darkseid. I mean, come on, Darkseid, the ruler of Apocalypse. Darkseid is the ultimate DC villain.
He
so
really
he's the
is.
ultimate Justice
He
League
is.
villain. I'm also going to throw in Injustice League, led by Lex Luthor.
Oh, the Injustice League.
Yeah, especially the iteration from the Morrison era with Joker and him,
Yeah.
and dude, great stuff. And of course, the Legion of Doom. I mean, it's kind of based all on that, and that's super fun stuff. And Prometheus.
Ooh.
Oh,
Prometheus. There's a
Cool.
great moment in Morrison's JLA with Prometheus, and he comes and he just completely kicks Batman's ass, and it's just great stuff. But Darkseid to me is the ultimate, the entire Fourth World thing. Basically, Granny Goodness, Caliban, Desaad, all that stuff is so amazing. Those action figures from the Superpowers line, oh my god, it's just good stuff. Darkseid's the best.
Yeah, the Fourth World really gave us, DC anyway, a great,
Yeah.
just,
The mythos.
And
giant.
One more I'm going to throw
series
in.
of villains.
I'm going to throw in is Batman.
Oh.
Batman's one of the greatest Justice League villains as well, and
Because
you guys
of-
know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh, yeah.
We might get to that in a little bit, actually. What about you, Drew? Who are some of your favorite Justice League villains?
I like Prometheus from Grant Morrison's, and that's why I'm glad when I saw Prometheus come up and he was going to be an Arrow, and it was like, oh, shocking! Prometheus was the best villain they've had in Arrow, like probably the entire time. And then you have I love Starro, man, just
Starro,
because
the original villain,
the
first.
just the concept of a giant alien overlord starfish that can control minds is so wacky and out there. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's not just a giant starfish; it's a starfish that control minds.
Control minds. And
Great comic covers though, with that fucking starfish on.
Yeah,
it. I love
classic.
those
Oh,
covers.
yes.
Then you have Amazo Because
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I like Amazo.
because just the fact that he can absorb the powers, it's like, oh well, now we need everybody to take.
He's
him
a
down.
cyborg, if I'm right, or
Yeah,
like a
android.
robot or something. Okay, I remember that.
I know that we're talking about the Justice League right now and all that stuff, but when I was growing up, I always was like, Amazo's a little unbelievable to me. I don't understand how
He's a little too
I don't understand how he
amazing.
duplicates their powers. I don't get it. Like Tio Morrow, that's who it was, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Tomorrow.
Like he should totally, dude. Why are you a villain? Like you should be like.
You're the greatest hero ever. Yeah, that
just imagine the patents. You know, he'd be rich.
And it's like, oh, I'm close to Superman. Now I'm invincible. Oh boy.
I was like, how are you going to absorb the Speed Force? I don't know. It's a little weird, but
Yeah.
there's weird technology there, and who knows? But yeah,
Comics.
it's a cool book. It's a cool character.
It seems like though, if you were a supervillain, why don't you just make like 50 of Amazos if he's an android?
Well, the cool thing about Amazo too is when the Justice League fights him, like they always have to come up with new and different and more clever ways to fight him off, and that's something that's really cool.
They don't put M&Ms or Reese's lead into a box with a stick. They just catch them.
That would only work one time.
Yeah, he's gonna catch on next time. Yeah, you guys said most of the ones I wanted to bring up. I always seen. I never read a lot of Superman standalone stuff, so I always saw Lex Luthor as being a big Justice League villain, and he really is. But he's one of Superman's biggest villains, so why not the Justice League?
He's the only one that can ever get the Joker to work along with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Vandal Savage.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm surprised Drewski didn't say that one.
Man.
And the Crime Syndicate
I was
of
about to say,
America.
is no one going to say the Crime Syndicate?
The Crime Syndicate of America.
Yeah.
Is there like a Crime Syndicate of Russia? There's like all these crime syndicates of
Well,
the
they
Justice
changed
League
it.
has
They
to
changed it
stop.
eventually, and it's just the Crime Syndicate now. But
In the graphic novel, it's America with a K, though.
yeah, it is.
Oh.
In the Grant Morrison
Yeah.
graphic novel. Frank
So
Bailey. Yeah.
that's just a few. We probably skipped over some. Reply
Despero.
down below. Yeah, there's tons. I mean, there really
Yeah.
is not only some that are for Justice League, but so many of other characters have crossed over from other comics as bad guys. And why not? I mean, it's interesting though to see like these villains that are villains for, say, the Flash take on Batman or Green Arrow. It's cool to see those cross over. I'll always love that. Okay, so that's some of our favorite villains. When we come back, I think we may be talking about our favorite writers. When we come right back from the break, Justice League, here on Pop Culture Philosophers.
Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about our YouTube channel. That's right, if you like the Pop Culture Philosophers podcast, you will absolutely adore our YouTube channel. There you will get the weekly comic book review, PCP movie night, the weekly pop culture wrap-up, and of course our YouTube channel is the home of the Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie podcast, exclusive only to YouTube. In fact, you can get on there right now, check out the 6th annual Haunted Halloween Super Spooktacular Special. So, thank you guys so much for your support, and remember, get on YouTube, find Pop Culture Philosophers, and subscribe. Hey everybody, welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers, and in anticipation for the Justice League movie coming up, we are doing a Justice League podcast here, talking all things Justice League. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. With me is my co-host, John Hammertime Holshoe,
Indeed.
and our guest, Jason,
Hey.
and Drew.
Yo.
We're talking about Justice League. We talked a lot already about the characters, the stories, the lineups, all that stuff. So let's really talk now about the people behind those characters and those stories. Who are your favorite writers from the Justice League? And that's what we're going to talk about first. And we're going to talk to Drew first, because I guarantee you the first name Drew says is someone we're going to be talking a lot about tonight and already have.
Grant Morrison. If you've listened to anything that I've been on talking DC, Grant Morrison is my dude. He hit that classic run in the 90s, probably the best run of the 90s, is so great, and he knows how to handle each hero and their interplay with each other. But going to some of the other ones, I like Mark Waid, who of course did Tower of Babel. He did Kingdom Come, and some of the other ones. And I do love Giffen and DeMatteis on Justice League International. But they've had a lot of good writers because it's one of the flagship books.
Absolutely, some good ones there. Speaking of good ones, Jason, what do you think? What are your favorite Justice League writers?
I have three main favorite ones. You already said Mark Waid. I'm going to have to say, I always mispronounce his name, but I'm going to say John Jones. I always mispronounce it. Is it John or Geoff?
Jeff.
It's Jeff.
Jeff Johns.
Okay.
Yeah, Jeff Johns.
Yes, and Brian Hitch.
I thought you were talking about Martian Manhunter for a second.
I was getting so confused.
I always do that.
Martians do run everything.
They do.
So Brian Hitch, too, who was doing the Rebirth stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, you really like. What do you like about his stuff so much?
See, I like his pacing. His pacing is, in a lot of stories that I've read, the beginning comes really fast and the middle drags and it's a quick end. But he actually paces it to where each issue has about the same amount of drama, tenseness, and everything. It's great.
Yeah, his first effort right before Rebirth started, when he was just on the JLA book, that whole Rao story was awesome, actually. I really liked it. Lots of cool time travel stuff. Have you read that, Drew?
I have not.
You should actually check that one out. It's actually really, really good. Good picks.
It touches on like religion.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Mark Waid, Jeff Johns, of course. Jeff Johns did Justice League in the New 52 with Jim Lee and others. Did Throne of Atlantis, which I think is a really good.
Spoilers. It's on my 5 list.
Oh, don't spoil. Don't be spoiling. John, what about you? What are your favorite writers?
Well, all these other people that are on the show can eat a dick.
Oh,
wow. Okay.
Here's why. Here's my list.
Wow.
Jeff Johns, because of the New 52.
Boom.
Alex Ross and Mark Waid, who worked together in Kingdom Come.
Okay.
Mark Waid, who did Tower of Babel. And then Grant Morrison from JLA. So pretty much everybody was already covered. God damn it. But they're all great writers.
Yes.
And there's so many more that I've left out. I was just trying to pick some,
Absolutely.
narrow it down. There's been some great runs on Justice League, JLA, and just standalone Justice League books. And those are the ones that stand out in my mind.
Absolutely. Obviously, Grant Morrison. I think Grant Morrison's JLA is probably one of my favorite. It's my favorite DC comic ever.
And he's one of your favorite writers in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Just period. And it's just a great run for the Justice League. I'll talk a lot more about that later. Mark Waid, an amazing Justice League writer, really understands the characters. He did Tower of Babel, of course, and he did Kingdom Come, but he also did other Justice League stories. He did a run with Brian Hitch right after Tower of Babel. That went for a while, did that whole Queen of Fables story and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. But there was a time when him and Grant Morrison kind of switched books for a minute, just kind of messing around, and Morrison went over and did Flash for a few issues. And Waid came over and did 2 Justice League stories in 4 issues. And there was an Adam Strange story that he did, but he did this story about synchronicity, right? And remember that one with Julian Calendar and all that stuff?
Yeah, Julian Calendar,
Yeah, that stuff, that's really, really good. Also, Keith Giffen, who worked with DeMatteis on the Justice League International stuff. Great writer, did formerly known as the Justice League and all that stuff. And Brad Meltzer, the controversial story Identity Crisis aside, he really does have an affection and an understanding of the Justice League characters, and he's a brilliant writer. And I think his run is really underappreciated nowadays. But those would be the ones that I would say. And basically, we all agree. I mean, it's Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah, they've had some great writers, and they've also had some great artists.
Now, that was a nice segue.
Yeah, well, now it seems like DC does, though, get the cream of the crop. They either bring in some fresh faces who go out and just blow everybody away, or they bring in some veterans, because who doesn't want to do a Batman story or a Justice League story? Who doesn't want to work for DC?
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, there's, we won't go into people butting heads with DC. That's a different different thing to talk about. But yeah, there's some amazing artists that have worked for DC specifically on the Justice League books. What a great thing to draw those awesome characters together. So I'll start with Drew. Who are some of your favorite artists from the Justice League books?
Well, shockingly, a lot of those artists work with those writers that we mentioned. We talk about Howard Porter with Grant Morrison. We have Ivan Reyes with Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
There's Alex Ross, painting his lights out. Let's see, Jim Lee. Jim Lee.
Who is this Jim Lee you speak of?
This young man, Jim Lee.
This new go-getter at DC Comics.
And then
he's going to be somebody.
He's going to be somebody someday. And then on the JLA, the Grant Morrison JLA Earth 2 book, Frank Whiteley.
Oh, yeah.
I love Frank Whiteley's art style, man.
Dude,
I love him so much.
Love it.
Great choices. Great. Robbie, I'm going to jump to you. Who are some of your favorite artists? You probably know some people I don't even know of. You've got more comic knowledge than most people.
I think this is going to go kind of like the writer conversation did. We're going to have a lot of overlap. I got Ivan Reyes on my list because the guy's like a modern...
Is it pronounced Reyes?
He's Brazilian. I
Reyes.
think so.
Okay. No, I'm not saying it's wrong. I just didn't know how to pronounce
I don't
it.
know, man. Let's call him up. Let's get him on
Yeah.
the show. Let's see.
He's here in the studio. No.
Right after Timothy Dalton and Martian Manhunter make their appearance. Now, he's like a modern-day Neil Adams. Really, really good stuff there. Alex Ross just does the most majestic Justice League ever. They just look godlike. It's amazing. George Perez does a hell of a Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
Because he can handle so many characters.
Oh, dude. He
and
does
complex
like these
layouts.
beautiful layouts.
Great stuff. And Darwin Cook,
Yeah.
who I just love his style. You know, he recently passed away. He's a great artist, a great writer. New Frontier was him. A really good classic style, and I really like it for the Justice League.
Yeah, there are some that are, draw and write. I mean, those guys, that's the envy there, man. I'm a terrible writer and a terrible artist, and to do both of that, and maybe have your own comic and be like, oh, I'm just going to, this is my vision as I see it. I can write it. I can draw it.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Absolutely.
That blows the shit.
It's a lot of talent.
Yeah. Jason, who are some of your favorite artists?
So we're all on the same page. So I
Yeah.
guess I'll rank mine to make it a little bit different. Number 1, Alex Ross. Because like you said, sometimes I'll just stare at the book. I'm like, this is amazing. How did he just draw this? It looked like he painted it.
Yeah, his painting, and he's probably one of the most, even like people I know that don't read comics, they know his artwork.
Yeah.
Because he's Alex Ross.
He just recently did those Universal Monsters covers.
Yes.
Oh, they're gorgeous, man.
So amazing. So it's him at the top, followed by Jim Lee, because I'm just a Jim Lee fan.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love Jim Lee's artwork.
And Ivan Reyes. In that order. Those are my 3.
What about you, John?
So I've got, damn it, Alex Ross, in order. This is my order. Alex Ross, Jim Lee, Ivan Reyes, Jason Fabok?
Babok.
Yeah.
Uh,
a new addition. Great talent.
Yeah, I've got Brian Hitch on
He did
here.
Dark Side War.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
good.
I got Brian Hitch, Howard
yeah.
Porter, you already said, and Doug, is it Mankey? How do you pronounce
Doug
his
Mankey.
name? Mankey.
Or
So those
Mankey. I
are
have
the
no
ones.
idea.
I had to
Not
go back.
the Pokemon.
There's some that come to mind automatically, like Jim Lee and Alex Ross, but I had to go back and look at some of the issues I liked and some of the covers I liked, and like, who is the artist behind this? Because it's my fault. It's ignorance on my part. There's some artists I really like and have enjoyed multiple works of them, and then not be cognizant like this is the same dude. Frank Quitely is one of I'm accused of Frank Quitely being one of those artists, but at least now I'm more cognizant of who he is. So I apologize, all you great artists, for me not giving you guys credit.
Absolutely. Earlier when we were talking about Justice League, and we were talking about our favorite lineups, and I mentioned that Morrison modeled his lineups on the Greek pantheon. Because I have this theory, and it's not my theory, obviously, but if you've ever read Grant Morrison's Super Gods book,
I have.
get the idea that comic books, and the superhero in particular, is like modern day American mythology. We don't really have a mythology the way like the Greeks and the Egyptians and the Nordics did, and but all that is storytelling. So you have these gods or these superheroes, and what they do is they are direct representations of attributes within us, attributes that we want, attributes we don't, whether they're villains, whether they're heroes. Superman is a Christ-like Messiah-type figure. You can watch those movies, and if you watch any of those Superman movies and don't get that, then you haven't watched this movie. Batman is obviously a dark lord of, leader of the underworld. Represents like Hades, right? So like Superman is like Zeus. Batman is like Hades. You got your Wonder Woman. You got Aquaman is Poseidon. It's obvious, right? Like, and with Wonder
Wait a
Woman,
minute, Aquaman's Poseidon?
yeah, right.
No kidding.
So it's basically there. And if you look at all the pantheons from all these different cultures, they kind of have the same archetypes. These archetypes are so perfectly personified with the Justice League, in particular, the Big Seven. Any thoughts on this? I'm really interested to hear what Jason has to say. So I'm going to start with you.
Okay. So what they're representing, I do get that because if you study history, a lot of different pantheons and whatnot, they all mirror each other in some sort of way. And like you said, we don't have our own culture in America. Well, we don't have our own mythology in America, so we created our own things to mirror other, religions and pantheons. You can see that actually with Shazam because he borrows his from different, mythological.
Yeah, he's got the wisdom of Solomon. He's got the strength of Hercules, and all that stuff.
And in a recent story, when I think it was with the Dark Side War, I think it was that one, he got a new, source of his power
The
from
apocalypse.
different. Exactly, he got from different pantheons scattered through Africa, Asia, Europe, all those things.
Yeah,
So it's like you said, it's a mirroring effect.
absolutely. And I didn't quite go through all of them, but like we said, it was Superman, Zeus, Batman, Hades, Aquaman, Poseidon, Wonder Woman, either Athena or Hera, but definitely to me more of Athena.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Flash is Hermes. That's so obvious. A Green Lantern is Apollo, the god of light. Martian Manhunter has a lot of different things that could kind of work, but Hephaestus works really well for him. But he also works really well with steel.
Yeah.
Because he was the forger of the weapons and all that stuff. And even like when he did, like Huntress is Artemis, the hunter and all that, and like Oracle, and it's all there. What about you, Drew? Because I know you've read Super Gods. I know you understand this theory. What just some of your thoughts on it?
I definitely agree that we in Western world we don't have that traditional pantheon, the Greek, the Norse, and another book series that I read, Madsen, they talk about the notion of gods and how each god, it doesn't matter like what time that period it is, there is always a throne for that god. Now, and nowadays we don't have Apollo on the throne of light. We have the Green Lantern and things like that. Like it doesn't like there'll always be an ascendant to take that throne. Like Aquaman is the new age Poseidon, and there are thoughts, because when we think about who controls the waves, it's Aquaman. It's like when we no matter what, like us who have read these books, like when we think about the skies, we'll think about Superman. When we think about dark, we think about justice. We think about Batman, and that's what Hades was. Hades was not vengeful. Like Hades was based on justice and control of the darkness.
Yes. He also was the Lord of the Riches.
Yeah.
So he had all the hidden treasures, and he was the richest of the gods.
You make a good point about that. To kind of move to the side, but still on that same page. Yeah. In the book American Gods, they make a point. A spoiler for people who haven't read it. They made a point that the gods are fading away because no one worships them anymore.
Yep.
So in the book, they modernize them. And with the Justice League, that is a kind of a way of them modernizing them. Like you said, it goes from Poseidon to Aquaman. They get a new persona, and thus they get the worship, and they still exist.
Absolutely. The idea that these are mirroring these pantheons, and that the pantheons themselves have all these crazy correspondences and correlations, means that we, as a collective group of humanity, have been telling each other the same stories over and over and over again, because these stories are things that we all feel and experience. So the collective unconscious, if you will, that's where all this stuff comes from. And that's why it's all over the world. And why even today we tell these stories, the hero's journey, all that stuff, the hero with many faces, the Joseph Campbell stuff, it's all there. And people way more well-versed than me have talked about this. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And an interesting thing is, like, we kind of know that things like belief and prayer actually have a measurable effect on reality at times, right? The power of the brain over the mind and things like that. Just think about this, like just standing like Superman for 20 minutes a day boosts your confidence, makes you just feel powerful, and all kind. I mean, it literally does the same thing as people that practice these spiritual and religious rituals experience. What about you, John? I'm very interested to know what you have to think about this.
I think it's baloney. No. I think, they're definitely, our take on gods, and it's, but you were talking about that era in the Justice League when they were starting to do stories about drugs and more stories that were hitting close to home, because I think part of that was these characters, since they were gods, they were becoming unrelatable. Like, nobody is like Superman, you know what I'm saying, that I know of, or like Wonder Woman. So I think they tried to humanize some of these characters, or make the characters more relatable, or the stories more relatable, because of that. But I do find it too mind-blowing that all these different worlds, or different parts of the world, have their version of Poseidon. You know what I'm saying? All these different gods. I'm not a very religious person myself, but I find that mind-blowing that they have all this mythology, no matter where you go.
All this history.
Yeah. They all have some take. Seriously, go to Asia or go to the Middle East. They both have, these different versions of gods, and multiple, and it's cool. Even if it's not, even if it's mythology, it's still cool to see their take on it, and that the fact that everybody came up with their own version of all these different characters is pretty badass.
And another thing very interesting too is if you just research like the history of Poseidon and all these other characters that would fit that kind of a role, right? And then start applying it to, like, just look up what the ancients thought about water, the element, right? And apply it to what you know about Aquaman from his stories, and you find that, man, it really, really works. Aquaman is, first of all, water represents emotion, right? And Aquaman is not a smart type character.
No.
Right? He's a very emotional character. He's quick to anger, and that anger is his fuel. He's very much like a Wolverine of the Justice League, if that makes sense. And there's just, it's even when it's not a conscious thing that they do, and it's absolutely really cool. And that's what we have to say about that.
Interesting. And you talked about mythology. I want to talk a little bit about something less serious, which is Justice League and animation. Because the Justice League has been animated in some form or other, at least as far as I can recall, my whole life. And my introduction, actually, to the Justice League was Super Friends, or at least my introduction to superheroes in general. I mean, I didn't see anything before Super Friends that was superhero-related, and that's what got me addicted. So I was wondering what you guys thought about the animated shows. Like I said, Super Friends was one of the first ones. There was variations of that for quite a while. In the 2000s, or was that the late 90s, you got the Justice League cartoon with basically the big shots at DC that would go on to do all those animated films, animated features, which are great as well. And then more recently, Justice League Action, which I love. I like the art style, but I really like the humor. And they're very short, easy to digest stories, but sometimes they'll expand them and do like a multi-part arc. It's never, I'll be honest with you, the Justice League Actions, they're not the most deepest show in the world, but it's still a really enjoyable show, and I'm happy they're doing it. And there's so many characters in there that I haven't seen in Justice League forever or in DC. So they're bringing a lot of characters back that hopefully will introduce some of these characters to some of these young kids that don't know about Plastic Man, or that don't know about, well, they know Firestorm maybe, but you know what I'm saying? There's some characters that I think, well, I'm assuming because of Arrow, but I'm saying there's some characters that people, well, I don't know if little kids watch Arrow, to be honest with you.
Nobody notices, but the way John is responding to my looks that I'm giving him. You listeners can't see that.
So does anybody...
you said Firestorm, I went, what? Oh, yeah, everybody knows Firestorm.
Well, I always knew of Firestorm. I love Firestorm.
Well, he had a cool toy, man. He had a flaming head, dude.
Well, dude, he's on the freaking... We'll just sidetrack, and we'll get to the cartoon in a minute. But it pisses me off that he's in that show, what's the
Legends
damn
of
show?
Tomorrow.
And he's so under... He should just blow everybody away every time. He's such a badass. And it should be... Every episode should just be like him just killing everybody.
Literally atomize them.
Then the credits just roll. But, Firestorm took care of it. That's how it should happen. And Martian Manhunter should be the same way, by the way, in Supergirl, but that's a whole different cup of tea. So talk about the animated shows, which, again, I love Justice League Action. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. You're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't seen it, because it's hilarious and awesome characters. But what do you think about the animated shows, Jason? And is there a particular one that stands out in your mind?
I'm going to do, not a throwback, but a pretty obvious one, the Justice League Unlimited, because it taught me friendship.
Taught you friendship. You didn't have any friends before that?
I had no friends before that.
Well, nice, man.
That's impressive. DC brings people together, man.
It does, because if you notice, every character in there, from the Jon Stewarts to the Batman to the Hawkgirl, they're all different personalities. Some exciting, some just very dull. But they found a way to work together, because not just out on missions, they had a lot of episodes where they're just them bonding, them getting to know each other, them coping with their differences. I love those episodes.
Yeah, so these characters are completely opposite. And if it wasn't for the Justice League, they may never actually interact with each other. You're right. It does build friendship, or brings people together that otherwise would not probably be socially together.
Exactly.
So.
And they built each character up to the point where they were living, breathing things. Like, you were like, oh, Jon Stewart would not do that. Oh, no, not at all.
And another cool thing about that was how many characters there were. They were using characters. You're like, what? Are you serious? The Question?
And the Question and the Huntress.
Yeah, what? That's awesome. I loved it, dude. Hawk and Dove.
Yes.
Hawk and Dove is probably my least favorite episode, but whatever. It's cool.
Are they getting their own show, or is it a movie?
What, Hawk and Dove?
Yeah, I heard they were.
I haven't heard anything.
I heard they're going to do something with Hawk
You're
and
ruining
Dove.
my night.
Yeah, but that might have been like a rumor, like TNT wants to do Hawk and Dove. I don't know.
But they might do it for their little network thing they're doing.
Yeah, who knows? Oh, that's right. DC's supposed to have a channel at some point in time.
Yeah, they pretty much do right now.
Yep.
Yeah, the CW.
C-Dub.
What do you think about animation? Is there particular ones that stand out with you, Robbie?
Well, the Justice League cartoon from Cartoon Network, like the precursor to Unlimited, is amazing. The direct continuation of the Batman animated series, Superman and
crew, I would assume.
Yeah, Bruce Timm, Kevin Conroy's Batman, Tim Daly is Superman. really good, fun stuff, right?
I love Tim Daly.
Was
Superman.
Tim Daly as Superman in Justice League? He was still Superman, right?
It was the same as Superman.
Yeah, okay, I'm pretty sure.
It's the
Okay.
same as the animated series.
Yeah, absolutely good stuff. I was a huge fan, like I said, of Superpowers Galactic Guardians, which was kind of like the 80s Super Friends, and it was the one that had Darkseid and Desaad, a lot of that stuff. This is the one with Cyborg and Firestorm, right? Really, really good show. And, dude, you cannot beat Challenge of the Super Friends. Like, with the Legion of Doom, every episode just trying to wreck shit. Like,
Legion of Doom.
so great. Black Mana's voice, oh my goodness. God, those ones for real. And, of course, they have the animated films as well. New Frontier, Throne of Atlantis, my favorite Justice League animated films.
Their animated films, man, talk about... They set a bar for animated films that no other comic company can touch at this point in time. As far as animated featurettes, they do such a good job. And I know that there's some times where they have to alter the story to make it cohesive into a shorten it to a film.
Yeah, film.
But they do a really good job, I think, for the most part. They're not all hits, but they do a good job, I think, for the most part. And the animation's great. Great voice cast. Dude, DC kills it, man, the animated films.
You're right. And they will pick characters that either are new or no one's really talked about. Because I was trying to explain the Court of Owls to one of my friends, and I said, you know what, just watch Batman versus Robin, and that'll explain majority of it for you. And they learned about the Court of Owls.
That's how people know.
took
That's how people know about Flashpoint.
Yep. Didn't they take the Court of Owls and the Nobody and combine the stories? Because that pissed me off. But at least you give somebody a cohesive movie, and if they haven't ever read any of those comics, they might still enjoy it.
Yeah, and let's not start talking about how they completely butchered, Grant Morrison's Batman and Son.
yeah.
Anyway,
The Black Glove. And,
At least now we know how Deathstroke lost his eye. I'm like, wait a minute.
Another way.
I don't think. Goddamn Robin.
Goddamn Robin.
Drew can't handle the Robins.
Yeah, he can't, man. It's his kids.
Can't handle those damn kids. Those meddling kids.
He needs to hang out with Joker. He can teach him something.
Crowbar. No.
Yeah, it's like Deathstroke is an embodiment of the two bad guys from Home Alone. He just can't take out the kid.
A criminal all his life can't take out a bunch of kids.
Drew, what are some of your favorite animated?
Like when I was a kid, I really didn't I lived out by a military base, and there wasn't like a comic book store near me, so I didn't get an early exposure to comics like some of y'all have. I grew up with the Superman, the Batman, the animated series, and then Justice League. And looking back at it, like I'm always like shocked in a good way how amazingly written those shows are. And I look at some of the writers on on those shows, and a lot of them are comic writers. Because you talked about like Justice League Unlimited, the writer who did the Question and the Huntress, it's Gail Simone who wrote it. Nice. And it's like it popped up when I was watching it earlier. I was like, huh. And then like one of my favorites, we'll get it to later. It was Dwayne McDuffie who did Static Shock, and then and then you have the movies like. They adapt it. Like, I love the Flashpoint Paradox. If you didn't get like a little bit of a tear at the end of Flashpoint Paradox, the letter, it's like, and of course Kevin Smith famously like recorded himself watching it like bawling, and it's things like that. Like when DC animated films, and especially the Justice League ones, cannot be topped. I mean, you have the Crisis on Two Earths, which is the Earth 2,
written by McDuffie.
Yeah, and it has that line, and it's like. Between Batman and Owlman, it was like we both looked into the abyss and you blinked.
Oh, so good.
And I love the DC animated stuff. Cannot get enough of it.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job. Great, not only great animation, because sometimes there's a weird style, but that's their own style, and it works though on the show. I'll admit it. But also the voice cast, man, they really do knock it out of the park.
Oh yeah,
they really do. And I think you mentioned the ones that I want to talk about, including. Like I said, Super Friends was my first exposure. I have not seen those Super Twins in any comics since then. I don't recall them recurring.
See, I don't like that Super Friends, but
yeah, but that
Challenge
was the one
of the Super Friends. Was
that's
awesome.
the one that introduced me to them, though.
Yes.
And
what about the one with the dog and the kids? Remember that one?
Was it a robot dog?
No, I don't think it was.
There was a robot dog.
It looked like Astro from the Jetsons.
Different.
Anyway,
yeah. Well, they definitely had. Hanna-Barbera had their own style.
Yeah.
And it carried over, and they even let's create some of our own characters. And then there was crossovers, or maybe I'm just thinking of the Batman crossover, but I love all the Justice League stuff from the films to the animated shows. But seriously, if you haven't seen Action, give Action a chance. I think you'll enjoy it. All
right, guys. Well, we were talking about animation, and as far as Justice League films go, they've they've done one and it hasn't come out yet. So we're doing this obviously because it is about to come out. We are so excited to see it. I think everybody here is super pumped to see it. Drew, well, are you pumped and why? Are you all in?
I am # all in. I'm excited because I know it's going to dark side. I know it's like it's leading. It's so obvious. Like you in Superman, Batman vs Superman, you had the big Omega symbol. Like I know it's coming. Like I don't really care. Like I just want to get to the end product of Darkseid. And it's like Steppenwolf. Yeah, cool. Let's see your nephew.
You think that's going to be part 2? That they're gonna leave?
Probably because this was supposed to be a part 1 originally. And I think it'll probably be like a Darkseid War type thing. They might change the name or something.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bad mistake since you hear this movie is only 2 hours long.
Yeah.
With its final cut.
Shocking.
It'd be a bad mistake to rush Darkseid into that. People didn't like the way Doomsday was handled in BVS. If they did Darkseid that way, it would be really bad.
Revolt. It would be a revolt. But yeah, I think it's going to change Aquaman's life in the public view with Momoa.
So
and like, I know so many people that are, it's like, why aren't they showing Superman? And it's like, we know Superman's in it. It's like, will you just let them tell their story?
Yeah. I hope he's not in it at all. I hope they just fuck with it. Like, no, he's not in
just
it.
After that big deal about him having to trim his mustache.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in it. We knew it.
Yeah. Totally pumped.
What about you, Jason? Are you pumped for this movie?
I am so excited. I am all in, like the man said over there, because I love the Justice League. I can't get over that. I can't stop saying that enough. I'm so pumped for Aquaman, Wonder Woman. I am a diehard Wonder Woman fanatic. Just point blank period. Just going to be honest. So
it's funny because when I asked you your favorite Justice League members, you didn't say Wonder Woman.
See, I didn't say Wonder Woman because I didn't want a fanboy off on Wonder Woman. But I'm so excited. I have a thing I do with movies that I want to see. I see the first trailer and no stills.
I do the same thing, man. Like media blackout.
Yes.
To save. You don't want everything ruined for you. And they do that with trailers now, man.
They do. So I haven't seen anything since then. Nothing.
I did the same thing for the last Star Wars. And we went and saw Spectre in the theaters.
Yes.
And the first damn trailer is the damn Star Wars trailer. I'm like, son of a bitch.
No.
I tried so hard. But yeah, I stopped watching. I don't want to see anything else. I want anything spoiled.
You
but
pumped for this movie, John?
Oh, dude, I am so pumped that it's like waiting for Christmas. Like, I'm more excited about this than I am anything else for the rest of the year.
More excited than Star Wars?
Yeah, I'm more excited.
Oh,
yeah,
me
because
too.
I think
Me
Star
too.
Wars looks great. I'm not a big Star Wars fan as some other people are, but I do love Star Wars. I'm super pumped. And that's the one thing I have going for me is that once I see Justice League, I'm like, it's all downhill from there. Like, you know what? We got Star Wars. You know, yeah. It's like what happened to John after Justice League he killed himself. He said, "There's nothing left." Whoa, got really dark.
Wow.
No, there's Justice League. There's
Die
Justice
for Darkseid.
John real aggressive tonight.
There's Justice League too. So, I think the movie looks fantastic. I think the casting is great. I'm still not 100% sold on the Flash's costume, but you know what? We'll wait and watch the movie.
I think it looks great.
I think
it
the
looks
casting.
so good.
I do like who they chose as Flash.
I think Flash's costume in the movie looks better than the TV show.
I'm
Yes.
not 100% sold on the show's costume. I'm not saying that the show is better.
It's glossy.
Yeah.
If you notice, it's held together by thread.
The thread
you
thing
notice that?
confuses me. It looks like dental floss.
I like the armor look better because it's segmented like
Yeah.
that. I like that look better, but I'm a nerd about like
It'll probably work great on
I think
film.
there's probably like a logical reason for his arm it to be like that
They're
too.
going to explain it.
Yeah. Well, wait. I'll take a wait and see approach. I'm excited. Man.
John would actually rather it come out of a ring, and I'm not
would.
even lying.
Yeah.
I'm not even lying.
I want to be close to the comic as possible.
I am super pumped for this movie. Like you guys said, I'm all in, and I think the is a little dumb. The whole unite the seven, you can't save the world alone, and trying so hard to like make the bat symbol an E, so that it makes
It's
each
my
letter.
favorite word, hokey.
Yeah,
But it works.
It's hokey. The all in thing is weird, but the Aquaman looks like it's going to be a more rock star Aquaman, more like the '90s Aquaman, but with a little bit more of a bro-y attitude. And I just have such a crush on Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
I would beat Lisa Bonet to death for him.
Jesus.
I'm just kidding.
Okay,
That was a
so
joke.
he's not the only one
happens
who's
to her.
aggressive.
No, I'm just
He's a
joking.
first
I was just
person.
saying,
Dark.
Jason Momoa is a hunk, and
Handsome man.
I'm really looking forward to this movie. Cyborg looks great. Flash looks great. I love the blue lightning. Batman, I think is going to be great. I think it's going to be a little lighthearted. It's going to be weird because it's going to be like kind of two visions battling, and I'm
Yeah.
worried. I'm worried because of that. I'm worried because Snyder stepped down. Whedon came in, made a 2-hour movie. You know Snyder didn't want a 2-hour movie.
He wanted 3.
And
6 hours.
We shall see if we get an ultimate cut, but that would be interesting too.
Yeah.
But I want the final product, what gets released, to be really, really good and not have to have
Yeah.
a DVD release to make it better. Or
Well,
Blu-ray.
ultimately, I think they're both great directors, and I think the product of the two, I think, is going to be great. That's what I think. We'll wait and
Absolutely.
see. But I've heard from rumors that it was fantastic. Whether it's true or not, we'll find out.
We shall see. So let us know in the comments down below. Are you all in? Are you pumped? And by now, you may have already seen it. So let us know what you thought about it. Stay tuned on our YouTube channel for PCP Movie Night. We are all in here. We are super excited. And we are about to do our top 5 Justice League stories of all time. But first, we're going to hear from you. But first, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back on Justice League Pop Culture Philosophers. Hey guys, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you about Patreon. That's right, we are now on Patreon. You can support Pop Culture Philosophers for as little as $1 a month on Patreon at patreon.com/PCP. Once again, that's patreon.com/PCP. For as little as $1 a month, you will gain access to a lot of exclusive content, behind-the-scenes photos and footage, including our PCP After Hours podcast. That's right, after each show, we leave the mics on for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we release the results exclusive to our Patreon supporters. So, jump on to patreon.com/PCP and show your support today.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about the Justice League, and we're about to get to our top 5 favorite Justice League stories. Before we do that, I think Robbie,
Yes.
I think you talked to the old social media. You
That's
asked
right.
Yes, the kids, what are your favorite
Yes.
storylines?
We asked all the kids, what are your favorite Justice League comic book stories out there and on the social medias.
They may overlap with some of our top 5.
We're on there on LiveJournal and MySpace. Be sure to check us out, Pop Culture Philosophers.
Google, what's the Google equivalent to Facebook that nobody uses?
You don't Google it, you Yahoo it.
What's the Google? Damn it.
Anyway, so Brian Weaver said New World Order. That's that first Grant Morrison one right there, right?
Oh, B-Weave, yeah.
Earth 2 and Final Crisis. Those are all Grant Morrison's.
Yeah.
Manuel Mendolia said Divided We Fall. That's the post Tower of Babel, Brian Hitch, Mark Waid stuff. Really cool stuff. Paul Edwards said New World Order. Uh-oh. James Donahoe said New World Order and Earth 2, more Grant Morrison. David Hatch said Crisis on Earth 3, which is the introduction of the Crime Syndicate. Great issue of Justice League from back in the day. The Unknown Soldier of Victory, which is Justice League number 100. Great issue with a lot of different characters. Earth 2 by Grant Morrison and Kingdom Come. Mike the Voice Matthews said Tornado's Path, Lightning Saga, Identity Crisis. Basically, every single Justice League piece of work by Brad Meltzer. Absolutely. On Twitter, we had @VonSlash. Anything by DeMatteis and McGuire. Kevin McGuire, J.M. DeMatteis did that stuff with Keith Given back
Not
in
Mark
the day.
McGuire when he wrote for
Not Mark McGuire.
DC Comics.
It doesn't count anymore because we found out he was cheating.
He's using drugs to write the comic.
Tommy Rivethead said Tower of Babel, the Mark Waid classic about Justice League being betrayed by Batman, basically having all these secrets and all that stuff. Jake Brown says Kingdom Come and Justice. That's an Alex Ross fan right there. Thank you guys for checking us out on social media. Facebook, YouTube, Patreon. Find us, Instagram, Twitter. We're there. PCP, Pop Culture Philosophers. Like, support, subscribe. Back to you, John.
So, our top 5. So it was kind of hard to actually narrow it down to 5. And also trying to get, like, is this a story? There's some that just can, I don't know. There's some stories that are epic stories. And there's actually, like, if you break it down, there's actually, like, 6 individual stories, if that makes any sense. So trying to narrow it down and say, I'll cohesively want these. Man, it was a little trouble for me. I don't know about you guys. That and...
My biggest trouble was trying to not do 5 Grant Morrison stories.
So you did 4 and then an Alex Ross story. I bet that's what happened. So we're going to do our top 5 in reverse order. These are our favorite storylines, our top 5, our personal favorite, if you can narrow it down to top 5. And again, these are worth ever changing. I'll be honest with you. This may be your top 5 this week. In a couple months, you may read something and say, you know what? Why didn't I add blah, blah, blah in here? Written by blah, blah Morrison.
Yeah, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to start with Jason, your top 5 in reverse order, if you could, your favorite Justice League story arcs or stories.
Number 5, Rock of Ages, where they confuse all the languages. I love that story. Absolutely love it. Number 4 is kind of cheesy. It's the JLA Avengers crossover.
Oh, yeah, the crossover, man.
George Perez, Kurt Busiek. Good stuff, actually.
It's a cool crossover,
It
actually.
is.
And I love the art style.
Yes.
Except for as Superman beats Thor, though, and I think that's a little janky.
Superman would whoop Thor's ass. I'm saying it. I'm going on record.
Thor's magic.
So am I. Argue with that.
If you think Shazam can beat Superman, then, okay, everyone. Sorry, Jason.
Number 3. See, my top 3 were kind of weird and a little wonky, so I'm going to go ahead and say Throne of Atlantis is my number 3.
Oh, Throne of Atlantis is pretty awesome.
Yep.
That almost made my top 5. It wasn't in there, but that's great.
Close. Okay. Number 2, I'm going to have to say Dark Side War.
Oh, I love Dark Side War.
Because it's just, I love alternate realities, and this was the closest without being an alternate reality.
You went up a couple notches in my book today, just so you know.
Thank you. And because it had the little mini stories it had in there, like the Green Lantern one was my favorite mini story. Okay. Yes, Tom King. Yes. And my number 1 has to be Identity Crisis. Because I just love it. It's such a human story. I love human stories. It's great.
That's a great top 5, man. That's a spectacular top 5.
Thank you.
I think we'll just end the show there. I don't think anybody can compete. No, so Identity Crisis is your number 1.
Number 1.
So that's you as the definitive Justice League story. So say I've never read any comics and say I'm illiterate. Would that be the first Justice League comic you recommend to me?
Yes.
Really?
Dive right into the pool.
I told you I was illiterate.
Would you recommend it to a 10-year-old?
Okay, I'd have to move down to number 2 for a 10-year-old. Number 2.
It's a little bit maybe more hard to digest for a little kid.
It's a little
bit
it's
more.
a little
Yeah.
mature themed, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it deals with rape. It
PG-13.
deals with rape in a very vivid way.
Yeah.
Without being and murder, and just it's a really dark story. And it's funny that you said it's your favorite, because when I asked you who your favorite Justice League writers were, you did not say Brad Meltzer.
See, I always forget he was the writer. I always forget. It's the same thing
I just thought
John
you were
said.
saving it, man.
It's the same thing John said, where it's like you just forget the artist or the writer off the top of the head.
But they do a very good job in that and dealing with very serious subject matter in a very frank and great way. I mean, DC has proven time and again that they can do serious stuff as well as zany. They can go out and do something crazy zany too. Baby Darkseid. Yeah. They can be all over the map, and they do it well. But again, great, like we said, writing staff. What a great top 5, man. What was your number 2 again?
My number 2 was, let me pull out the old list there. Handy dandy, if you remember that.
It was Dark Side War, wasn't it?
Dark Side War.
Oh, it's Dark Side War. Yeah. Yeah, great list. And you said earlier you were a big Alex Ross fan. Did Alex Ross work not make your top 5? Did I miss something?
Well, you see, I wanted to be unique, and I knew that was going to make it on at least 1 or 2 other lists.
So you're saying these are my... Okay, that is a great list, man. I appreciate you being on the show today, because we haven't had you on the show yet, and bringing that... What a great top 5. I'm happy, man. That makes me happy.
Yeah, you've really impressed John.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Great top 5. I'm actually going to jump to Robbie. I would like to know your top 5. Yeah, that's going to be 4 Grant Morrison, and one's going to be like a movie or something. Just to fuck with us. That's actually adapted for a Grant Morrison book.
Honorable mention. First of all, honorable mention, 6-issue miniseries from 2004, DC New Frontier.
Ooh.
That's an honorable mention. My number 5 is Tower of Babel by Mark Waid and Howard Porter from JLA 43 through 46 in 2001. It's a story where Superman has all these contingencies to defeat the Justice League. Batman has all these contingencies to defeat the Justice League, and Ra's al Ghul steals them and uses them. And it was twisted and awesome, and it was very emotionally relevant, and it resonated, and I really, really liked it. My number 4 is the 7-issue miniseries from Grant Morrison from 2008 and 9, Final Crisis. I think Final Crisis is, to date, the Justice League's greatest defeat, and it's also how they pick themselves up and win. And it's just an absolutely brilliant story, and I love it, and it's got so many layers to it. My number 3, Mark Waid, Alex Ross, 1996, 4 issues. What are we talking about? Kingdom Come.
Oh, yeah.
Not the Jay-Z album, which is a great Jay-Z album, by the way.
Yeah, I think the album I was confused that the album was all about Batman and Superman.
Well, the song was inspired by...
Is it really?
Yeah, because he came out of retirement. Jay-Z did to do that album, just like Superman comes out of retirement in Kingdom Come.
Oh, okay.
To save the day.
So there really is a connection there.
Hey, listen to the song. There's all kinds of references in there. It's good stuff. It's a great book.
Take your word for it.
Brilliant artwork, a great story, really heartfelt. My number 2, it's a Grant Morrison 4-issue series, but it had a whole lot of tie-ins. It's from 1998. It's DC 1 Million. DC 1 Million is not only one of the best Justice League stories, it's not just one of the best Grant Morrison superhero stories, it really showcases the legacy and the importance of the Justice League, that even in the 853rd century, like a million, like it's so far ahead in time, and these characters still exist. They all dominate and rule a planet that happens to correspond to the god that there's, yeah, right? You get that? Batman's on Pluto and Aquaman's on Neptune, and really cool stuff. I love DC 1 Million. I think it's one of the best events ever. And my number one favorite Justice League story of all time, since I didn't want to cheat and say the entire Grant Morrison run, so I picked one particular story, 97 to 98, Justice League 10 through 15, Rock of Ages.
Rock of Ages again.
I love Rock of Ages. It's amazing. It was my first real Dark Side comic book that I read. I read JLA when I was growing up, and I was like in freshman year of something in high school or something like that. And I was reading Justice League because it had all the big characters in it, and it was like more bang for your buck. And dude, that Grant Morrison just took my 15-year-old brain and just like changed it overnight almost. Like, and it was just, Rock of Ages was one of those first stories in comics that I really had to think about and reread over and over again until I really grasped it. And when you read it now compared to other crazier Grant Morrison books, it seems really simple, but it's a very complex story, really great themes, and it's what Justice League is to me.
That's your number one.
It's my number one.
Surprisingly, a Grant Morrison
Only
story.
3 Grant Morrison stories on
Yeah,
that top.
I'm impressed that you out so much fucking restraint. I expect to be just Grant Morrison this. Although, in his defense, Grant Morrison's a really good writer.
Yeah.
How can you not like Grant Morrison? And he's done a lot of DC stuff,
He's
especially
great.
Justice League. So
He's
it's hard
great on Justice League.
It's hard not to pick a lot of his stories. That is a great top 5. And I think you beat out Jason here.
Fair.
You've been
Damn.
replaced.
Damn.
No, I'm kidding. Those are great top 5s, actually. And you did have some overlap because there's some great stuff. I assume there'd be some overlap there, so that's to be expected. Great top 5. And I'm excited to hear, Drew, your top 5, if you could.
I was so shocked because I thought that there was going to be some overlap. And the thing is, like, you guys started doing your list, and I was like, man, mine is different from, like, I expected them to be like, oh, no, it's all the same Grant Morrison, all the same films. But my number 5, I have JLA, I believe it's 15 and 16 by Grant Morrison, Prometheus Unbound. And it's Prometheus' first appearance, and he's taken over the Watchtower. He's hacked Steel, and my favorite scene in that, Steel is just like his armor's been hacked, and he's marching his way to the edge of the Watchtower, and he's going to chuck his giant hammer out the wall and just blow up the Watchtower. And Plastic Man comes around the corner, and he gets the hammer directly down his throat, and you just see his body just stretch. The hammer just like, and he's just like coughing up and hacking. And he's like, "Oh man, thanks, Eel." Just it's funny, but Prometheus, like, he destroys Batman in his first fight, and Batman's actually like shook by it. He's like, "I can't believe that happened." Number 4, I have the 2-parter from the animated series, The Terror Beyond. And I had forgotten about it until my good friend Dwayne, he reminded me about it. It has a lot to do with Solomon Grundy. And what happens is they are trying to use him to stop Cthulhu. And this is such a wild, out there story, and it has one of Dr. Fate's first appearances in the show. So I'm a big Dr. Fate fan, so I'm like, yes. And then it also has like a little bit of a civil war to it because Aquaman, Grundy, Dr. Fate, they're fighting Superman and Wonder Woman and Hawkgirl, and just the fact that they're fighting a Lovecraftian horror, and all of the monster designs in that episode really stuck out to me. And then I have 3, Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox. Man, an emotional movie, seeing these twisted reflections, like Superman's never seen the sun. And then you have the ending scene, made every fanboy cry. And just always getting...
It is emotional, man. And I thought they did a good job trying to condense some of that from the comics into a movie. Mm-hmm. I was like, it's going to be something they hack apart, but they did a good job, I thought. And
I thought that the Flash running in that movie looked so much better, and they took a lot of that and used it in the TV show. Like, a lot of the effects look kind of similar. Next one after that is another Morrison 2-parter. It's think it's 22 and 23, Perchance to Dream. And it was really big for me.
It's the one with Daniel.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is the crossover with the Sandman. And Daniel shows up and they're fighting Starro the Conqueror. He's invading people's dreams and making everyone sleep and be mind controlled. And it has one of my favorite lines. It's like Kyle Rayner is unsure of himself because he's a rookie. Like he's not used to being the Green Lantern. He's having the shadow of Hal Jordan, who's been with him forever, and everybody knows him. Everybody loved him. And Daniel tells him, it's like, no, you're going to be better than him. It's like, because you've already been through it. And that's what. And Daniel just tells him, it's like, no, you've got this.
That's a great story.
And then after that, like, of course, there is the overlap. Rock of Ages, man.
Rock of Ages.
Wow, Rock of Ages made 3 lists.
I won't go into it. It's just a great story. Like Darkseid is like, and you see his impact all over that universe.
Oh, God, the League gets split up, and they're in different times, and oh my God. And Aquaman's in it.
Aquaman's so awesome. I just can't get over that.
Nice cover. What about you, John? What are your top 5?
Mine may have some overlap, but I think it differs a little bit. So let's start with the top 5 in or reverse order here. Number 5 is going to be Darkseid War, which we discussed already, which I thought was pretty badass. Number 4 is actually going to be something I brought up earlier, which is Trinity War. I just like that crossover with the Justice League Dark at the time. I thought it was a cool story. That is the one where Superman kills
Dr. Light.
Dr. Light. And they're like, did Superman knowingly do it? Was he under somebody else's control? There's all that whole thing. And then for Superman to kill somebody, before that, I only recall Superman ever killing Zod. So for him to kill somebody, if he did it in the comics, I certainly don't remember. Or if it was like evil Superman, or it was, something going to Cyborg Superman, come to find out, or some bullshit. Number 3 is going to be Kingdom Come. The artwork, man, it's a cool story. It's cool to see them all come back together, whether it's a Bizarro world or whatever, Elseworlds or whatever, remains to be seen, because in theory it could be the real, we don't know. But again, Alex Ross knocks out of the park. I love his art style. Number 2 is going to be Crisis on Infinite Earths. Great story. Cool, that's one of the first ones as far as the Crisis, isn't that the one that, and I might be misremembering, isn't that the one that kind of brings all the things together and tries to fix the history of DC that's broken?
Oh,
right?
yes.
I remember it being pretty epic for its time. If that was that one of the first big Crisis storylines, if I recall? Am I misremembering?
It was the first Crisis event.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, and that's the one also where Supergirl dies, right?
Yeah.
And it's also the one where Flash
dies.
Dies. You think he dies, or you come to find out he's not dead, or something like
dies.
that. Yeah.
Barry dies.
You think he dies. Okay.
He does die.
He does die. How does he come back?
He goes to the Speed Force.
Okay.
And then when they need him,
Yeah.
it's complicated.
So I think it was cool the way they did, where they kind of try to piece everything together. But it's also, those are 2 big characters, especially Flash. I love the Flash, man. Flash is one of my favorite Justice League characters that doesn't have a cape.
Okay.
And rhyme with Schmatman.
Okay. And I did say it's the first Crisis event, meaning like miniseries. It's not the first book called Crisis. That all comes from the whole Earth 1, Earth 2
No, this
stuff.
is the big Crisis big event. It's a multi thing. And then my favorite, probably, if I had to pick one, and this was hard to pick one, I really like Tower of Babel. I think it's a really cool story, a really cool concept. The fact that
a Batman-oriented one.
Yeah, the fact that Batman's got all these backup scenarios in case one of these people have to be put in check or put down. And then that, of course, gets leaked. And then after the fact, I just like how Batman's basically like, hey, I did what I had to do, man. I mean,
I'm not going to apologize.
Yeah, he's not going to apologize. I'm like, what a dick.
Vote me out then.
Didn't he quit before they voted him out?
Yeah.
But there were other people there are other people in the Justice League who were like, it's a shitty thing, but you know what? I see where he's coming. You know what I'm saying? There were people who understood his vantage point. I think Superman was one of those people, was it not? Or am I misremembering this story?
I think Superman.
Maybe Superman was one of the people who was like, "Fuck this guy," because Superman got
he turned his skin translucent.
Yeah, Superman got probably the worst of it. But there were some Justice League members who were pissed, but at the same time were like, "Well, you know what? I would have done it if I was in this." And Batman, that he is the leader, and he really does have to be able to put them in check. Should somebody go rogue, do you really want Superman going bad and fighting the Justice League?
He's kind of the leader.
Yeah,
he's a leader.
He kind of takes the leader role.
He's a tactical leader.
Yeah.
Well, I would say
Who's the inspirational leader of the Justice League, man? Come on.
I would say Batmite.
Might. Yes.
Fun fact about that, I was reading a philosophy book about that, and they were talking about how they're both the leader. One's an emotional leader, one's the thinking leader, and they clash all the time. And they gave scenarios of like, oh, here's the topic. Who are you going to believe? And it was funny because they're talking about the Justice League. Like, I don't know who we go with. Mom, Dad, I don't know.
Who's the other leader? Soups?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I forgot to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Batman
going to say.
Superman.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, I always thought of him as the leader when I was a kid. Like, oh, he runs it because he's the most powerful. But when you get into the comics, Batman seems to be making decisions. But maybe that's from a tactical standpoint. You're right, because he is more of a military guy, or as far as his fighting style, because he's not invincible.
There have been many leaders in
Yeah.
the Justice League, too. Like Black Canary's been a leader. Aquaman and Martian Manhunter were the leaders of the Detroit team, the infamous one with
Oh, yeah.
Vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's very variations.
The
of
greatest
the
Justice League
Yeah.
member vibe.
But Superman's the only one that has a jersey that seems has Team Captain embroidered on it. They had custom made by Alfred.
Yes.
Yeah, there's many variations, I should say, but he seems to be in the version that has Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
He takes a lead role a lot of the time.
Good
I shouldn't
top
say he's
five.
always. Thank you.
No Rock of Ages.
No Rock of Ages. That's something I barely remember. Maybe I have to reread it. Maybe I would change my top five.
Yeah, you probably
Let's
would.
do another Justice League episode in 2 weeks.
Yeah, after
And
we see the movie.
we'll see if our top five changes.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here on the show. Thank you for listening to our Justice League podcast. Jason, thank you for being here.
Oh, yes.
And final thought, I want to ask you why. We asked why you love the Justice League. Why are the Justice League important?
The Justice League are important because in these tough times, we need someone to look up to, someone to inspire us, someone to look up to let us know that we can be better, that we can fight together. And what's supposed to rhyme?
Very well. Yeah. Very well put. Absolutely. Thank you again for being on the show. Drew, as always, thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And final thought, why does the Justice League matter?
It matters because they are our modern pantheon. They are the culmination of what we can do as friends, as allies, to take on something
As super friends.
as super friends and allies, super allies that we could not handle alone. And that can be used for anything. That could be used for strife. That could just be used for just a tough time, man. Just call your buddies and hang out. You can have your own Justice League like us.
Absolutely. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. I want to thank you once again for listening. My final thought, why does the Justice League matter? Exactly what Jason and Drew said. Seriously, it's the mythology. It's about the learning to work together. It's about learning to be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be, and how to make and form a community with that through strength and just wisdom and awesomeness. And the Justice League is just so cool. And Jason Momoa. And I wouldn't do anything to Lisa Bonet at all.
Just want to make that clear.
Yes. What about you, John?
I wonder if we can get the intro of the show to be redone by the Super Friends announcer. Batman, Superman. You know that announcer? Dude, it's iconic. I think they matter. Yeah, like other people have said on the show. And maybe it's a little cliche that they're putting on posters. You can't save the world alone or whatever. But it really is. You got these great characters, but cohesively as a whole, they're just so much more. And it's not just them as working as a team to stop people, but I do love that camaraderie. And you see these different. Really, read the Shazam comic, and then read Shazam when he's in Justice League, and there's definitely a different Shazam. You know what I'm saying? It brings out the almost a child. But there's a different. Really, seriously, it changes people. Their perception, some people are trying to fit in because they're not big enough for the Justice League. They feel like they aren't, or they're rookies, or some are more humorous, or some people clash like the Green Lantern and Batman. I love the way they are together as a whole, and I think we need them because it just makes everything better, man. Who doesn't need the Justice League? How awesome are they? And I think I love the comics. I'm happy the comics are there, and I'm excited about the movie. And maybe I didn't answer the question. Maybe I evaded the question.
No, you answered it.
But I love the Justice League.
Yes.
And I'm happy that other people do. And I'm excited for the movie. And I think everybody's going to be in for a treat. I really think they're going to hit it out of the park.
All right.
And, yeah. So chime in below what you think about the movie. If you've seen the movie, chime in what you think about the Justice League. Who you think is the most underrated character. Because we might have not have mentioned somebody who was on there. And next episode, we're going to talk about Stephen King. He's a little writer you might have heard of. I don't know if he's done any DC books. Has he? He might have actually done something.
He actually co-wrote the first story arcs in American Vampire,
Of
which
course
is a
you would
Vertigo
know
book
this.
published by
Yes,
DC.
yeah.
That's right.
Love that book.
So we're going to talk about Stephen King's his not only his books, but of course his books have been translated to other media, comics, film, cartoons.
It's going to be a great show.
It's going to be a great show.
Which we intended on doing before this show. But
And just for the record, I don't think they did a Stephen King cartoon. I don't think they
they
did.
should.
Yeah,
That'd be
I would love to
wild.
see the animated Lingoliers.
It'd be better than the live action.
Oh,
one.
dude, it
They
can't
already
be.
are the meatballs with teeth.
Yeah, can't be any worse. So, I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're on the website, you can always subscribe to our show. We're on Android. We're on Android. We're on iTunes. Subscribe. If you're subscribing, come out to the site and check it out. There's more on there. There's Robbie does a weekly comic book review. We do movie reviews. There's some blogs on there, even some by the great Drew Madsen.
Going to be doing a Justice League story.
Going to be doing
pretty
the
soon.
Justice League one. He's going to talk about his favorite scenes that have Batman bending over.
Yeah.
Because Batman, he works out, and you can tell. Do you see anything with the cape? Anyway,
I'm intrigued.
He may not be. That may not be what he's
It's
writing
just
about.
5 paragraphs of just bat ass.
Maybe we'll stick some Nightwing in there. Anyway, well, we sidetracked here, and it got to like really
You
weird.
sidetracked.
You
did it.
Got a weird place.
He is going to be writing some. What are you writing your blog about? Justice League.
The top Justice League stories and animation TV, and then and pretty soon for Jumanji, I'll be working on a top 5 the Rock movies.
Oh, awesome. So
But
check that out.
Not a top 5 Tyrese movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Check it out. There's so much more on the site. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll check you out next time. Same bat channel, same bat time.